in this country. Okoko, let's just begin from there as well.
You know, it's really sad, for some of us who came from not very privileged families, to see stories of students who have worked so hard in school. They had ambitions to study certain courses. When results are released, you see the top students in class 8, Form 4, they will always express their future wishes, professional wishes. Some will say, I'll wish to study and become a doctor, or I wish to study, become an engineer. And the way we have known it, the government has an obligation to support these students to realize their dreams. Now to see that the government is letting these kids on their own, it's really sad, because for some of us who are politicians, we know the people we represent. I know the background, the economic background of the people I represent from Miraa. And I know that there are families, many families, Dibal. If they don't get support from help to take their students to university, their dreams will die. It is sad. You know, you have seen a story in Nation, page 7, where a student is saying, my mother, being a peasant farmer, cannot raise the required amount. Maseno University was my initial choice. Since I know my family's financial capability, I will not be able to join that university. That's what we are doing to our youth, killing their dreams. Even if, for anything else, killing the dreams of our youth, the bar, is to really announce that you are passing a death sentence to the youths of this country. All of us, me included, I developed a dream of becoming a lawyer when I was in secondary school. And I knew that nothing would stand on my way. Once I qualify, I knew that I'll get loan from university. I will be able to go to the university of my choice, study, and finish and pay the loan. And I'm proud. I'm a proud Kenyan because I paid back my loan long ago. I paid my loan and got opportunities to work as a lawyer. Now to see the dreams of other Kenyans not being realized is to say that there is no, literally speaking, there is no government that cares for our youths in this country. Initially, we had a plan where these students used to get money from members of parliament. That has since been removed. Am I right, Honorable Mazo?
Yes.
That has since been removed. Even those who are getting bursaries get a paltry 3,000 shillings. 3,000 shillings. Now, what will 3,000 do for a peasant student who is supposed to pay a university fees of 150,000? I think if there is anything that should provoke members of National Assembly to do amendments to this finance bill, it's the plight of our students. We know the level of unemployment in this country. We know the level of economic strength of the citizens of this country. We know the number of parents who will never manage to pay fees for their students. We can't leave these guys helpless. We cannot leave them on their own. We owe it to them to ensure that their children go to school so that they can also become better citizens and end the poverty circles in their families. So I'm going to reach out to members of National Assembly I know and appeal to them to think twice about the government policy of denying university students adequate money to support their university education. Those who want to go to the TVET can go, but it should not be on grounds that the government has totally failed to support them. You saw when Biden administration came in, the first thing he did as a president was to write off money that the students, university students owed the government in the United States of America. So don't be cheated by these policies that come from World Bank and other priesthood institutions that the government should not support university students in furthering their higher education. No, we must do all that we can to ensure that we support our students. Bad policies can have disastrous consequences, and policies that deny income to the middle class. If you read the story of Russia, when Mikhail Gorbachev took over and introduced the capitalism in Russia and introduced taxation measures, we had situations where police vehicles, these Land Cruisers or police officers, would at night operate as taxis because the policemen had no money. They had to do taxi to make money. Ambulances were doing taxi business. If you drop a patient somewhere in a hospital, when you leave, you stop and say, I'm operating a taxi, can you enter? In fact, it was so bad that at times a person carrying a corpse will tell you, Kiti ambele haina shida. Kiti ambele haina shida. Nurses used to leave work as nurses, they go to the streets to do prostitution because the government had squeezed them so much. Let the government not drive Kenyans to that level. And you are I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart, having gotten in touch with Kenyans, that let the government not push Kenyans to that level. When Ruto took over, he found a country that had a workforce that was fairly, well, not satisfactory, but that had a fair income. The income was fair. But the taxation measures that have come in have driven to the level that has never been seen ever this country attained its independence. And now to push it to another level where even the peasant farmer who has had hopes on university education, you are seeing those hopes being dimmed, is totally unacceptable. I think it's coming to a level now where we should never take no for an answer as Kenyans. We cannot have a government telling us, no, we will not support your university students. We must now tell the government, no, you must avail resources to support our children get higher education. Yes.
All right, Dan Mazu.
Yes, when we grew up in the village, our parents encouraged us one day, to go to a national high school and to a university, and we'll have a better future. And it happened. But that's not the case today. A student likely to become an engineer is finding himself as a plumber. A student likely to become a lawyer is finding himself as a court clerk. A student, likely to have become a pilot finds themselves in the village driving a tractor. And you see the country is not moving forward. You see the country has stagnated. The country has no clear policies by the government as to what to do with the population which has grown larger. I've said earlier that the government cannot employ everybody. In fact, the civil service just employed a very small sector. The biggest, sector or the biggest employing team or group are the investors. The investors are local and international. So we need to create an opportunity for students. And there are many universities now in Kenya, and they are all producing students that go into different professions. But when they leave the university, there is nowhere to be employed, there is nowhere to go. Everybody cannot go to the government, everybody cannot become an Air Force officer or the Army or the Ministry of Defense generally. It will take a few. Police force, prison force, KWS will only take a few. So where do you take all these Kenyans who come from impoverished backgrounds are very talented and can do very well. Even the ones who are in the creative arts, the ones who are
in the gig economy.
You know, they're being overtaxed, and the talent and the creativity, you know, ends up elsewhere, and it's short-lived. You know, we no longer, export sports people. You know, we use our footballers play for international, football groups, or clubs, and then now they'll come home and employ. So we no longer, we are fewer and fewer going to that scenario. So I think it's a high time the government thought what to do with the growing population. It's a high time the government created an opportunity for people to create employment. Employment is not created by government. The one for government is fixed. Employment is created by investors. It's created by businesses. It's created by, people who are self-employed. And we should not be training university graduates, just to end up without doing much. And therefore, that's why a lot of our workforce is leaving the country. A lot of our doctors are leaving the country. Pilots are leaving the country. We need also to retain some people here. There's nothing wrong going to work out there and send money back home. But at what rate? We should have a bigger force at home than the one we are sending outside the country. And surviving outside the country is not easy. Some people take many years to stabilize and be able to assist the people at home. So we need to give hope to Kenyans. We need to balance things so that one knows if you become an engineer, you have an opportunity. If you become a lawyer, you have an opportunity of becoming a magistrate, working for the DPP, working for law firms, all that. So that when you go to university, then you have certainty. We want to encourage, our very bright Kenyans, young people, to work hard and go and work for the United Nations, work for international organizations. But the moment you don't even help that person go through a university education, how will they ever work for Deloitte? How will they ever work for the United Nations? You frustrated them as a government that somebody ended up becoming a plumber. Plumbing is very good because we have all these housing projects going on. Housing project is not largely done by the government. Housing projects are largely done by private investors. The government has a very small segment, despite all this taxation and the money is created for housing. So we need, it is true we need plumbers, we need builders, but as much as we have all these plumbers and builders, we also need our accountants at the highest level internationally. We need, our pilots locally and Kenyan trained pilots working for international organizations like the UN. And therefore, it's a high time now the Minister of Education and the government generally relooked at this issue of sending a talented poor person, to the university, and them having an opportunity in life to serve here in Kenya and to serve internationally. We have many international companies which will need our youth. But when you destroy, a poor talented child from ever leaving, the village, by hard economic times, by hard taxation, by failing to have a proper plan to take them to school, those days when students had boom. It would encourage many of them to get to university, and it would encourage many of them even to read further and have masters and PhDs and go into the international market. But we have a potential PhD holder held at the village for a lifetime. I think that is poor planning of education. It is being sensitive to the poor, and we need to have a way of getting that child from the village to New York, and to that child sending money back home and educating more people, because education is an equalizer. At the moment we don't get it right with education, then we are going to have very dissatisfied Kenyans in the future, and we are not going to break even the chain of poverty. You know, we need to break the chains of poverty by good government education policies. And therefore, it's a high time now. We made sure that somebody is not going all the way to university and ending up back to the village
with a degree in hand
and
a
driving
job.
a tractor, you know, fetching water for people to have a living. Really, we must think right, and the whole thing must be gotten right in the world. We must make sure that there is future in education in Kenya, and there is hope in our future, and there is future in our youth people, and each has an equal opportunity to grow to the highest level possible.
Indeed. I wanted us to concentrate a bit now on the latest development with the LSK now moving to the courts to challenge the decision that was passed by the parliamentary committee, the select committee, and the decision on the fertilizer saga. And right now it seems that the CS is not really out of woods as it is. So what does this really portend, especially looking, because we had conversations here and everyone was saying this is done and dusted. Once now it has been proclaimed by the committee that he's been exonerated, there's no evidence or there's no, was it evidence? There were no claims that now he could be held liable for this fake fertilizer saga. LSK.
What is LSK seeking?
Is seeking to nullify that particular decision, saying that the entire process was a sham, was shambolic.
You know, we discussed last time, the bar, and we said if anybody has any evidence of any underhand dealings that took place, they can, invoke the due process and overturn what Parliament did. It's always good to have a law society that is very proactive, a law society that is trying to push the accountability card. That's good. And it's always good to have the courts being there to watch whether there are any excesses on Parliament. And that's how you develop jurisprudence. So for me, it's a good thing, and I want to congratulate the new president of Law Society of Kenya for being very proactive and living with the motto and the ideals of Law Society of Kenya to push for accountability and a good governance in the country. But you know, for me, the bar, all the debates we have had this morning point to one thing. A time has come for us to audit our 2010 Constitution and make a bold move to propose some amendments to that Constitution. And the best way to do it will be through a popular initiative under Chapter 16 of our Constitution, Article 257. Because instead of putting the idea of impeachment of a CS under Article 152 in the hands of one house called the National Assembly, the National Assembly should initiate the process and impeach the CS. But the Senate should do the trial. Because the problem I'm seeing is 149 members of Parliament
overturned by 9
voted to push for the trial. I think that was a trial. What happened at the committee was a trial of 9 members. These 9 members conducted a trial and they returned a verdict of not guilty. And the 149 have no say. That becomes the end of the matter. And the CS is free. What we need to do...
So we have an avenue with this particular
what we need to
development.
do is, that is good. I say what the LSK is doing is good. Keep the debate alive. You know, at times you can even name and shame. That's good enough. You're still keeping the fire burning. But I think for the future, for the future, we need to relook at our Kenya Constitution. You know, when this Constitution was enacted in 2010, Senate was not in place. So everything that was done from Article 1 all the way to Article 260 was leaning towards National Assembly. And there are many things that we did not get right. One of them is on impeachment. When you read that chapter of executive, there are a number of things that needs to be relooked in Chapter 9 of our Constitution. The second one is legislation. If you go to London, even the House of Lords, which does not enjoy direct mandate from the people, the House of Lords is not elected the way Senator Maanzo and myself seek for votes from our counties. They are appointed. But they still have a mandate of reviewing finance proposals. The budget, when the budget is passed by the House of Commons, it still goes to the House of Lords for review. How is it that we as senators don't have a say on budget? That the only thing we do is to look at the revenue sharing bill and that's the end. I think that's a big anomaly, big disconnection in our 2010 Constitution. And I'm going to urge a few senators, we come together, we do a proper audit on that Constitution and make some proposals. Because at times, it's good to have a cooling effect. If National Assembly passes the finance bill and there is an uproar from Kenyans, by the time that bill moves to the Senate, there is a cooling effect in between. Even the president will look and say, no. This bill is creating a lot of uproar from the people who elected us. Maybe we need to reflect and relook at it. That's what happens in United States of America. The bill moves from House of Representatives to the Senate, and the Senate can propose amendments. You go to Australia, it moves from House of Representatives to the Senate, and the senators can make proposals. The only thing I've seen in our Constitution, the Senate never originates finance bill. The finance bill comes from the House of Representatives, but the Senate normally has a say. We were not elected to come and discuss the housing bill, the finance bill and the taxation on this TV and they write the Book of Lamentations. The people of Miraa elected me so that as their member of parliament, when I'm on the floor of the House, I can cast a vote that reflects their wishes and admirations. So this Constitution, the way I've seen it, myself, the way I've seen it, needs to be audited. We bite the bullet. The Americans did theirs within 5 years.
But I thought you had also a chance, you as Senate and the National Assembly. There was the House bill that was shot down. I don't know what was the essence of the House bill being the bicameral House bill. You may remember it?
That is,
that was seeking now to harmonize the forcing relationship between the National Assembly and you.
That bill was a big joke.
Why was it a big joke?
It was a big joke. It was not speaking to the issues that we are.
The salient issues that you're raising.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. If these guys are genuine, we can actually come to, we can, if the National Assembly is serious, and Maanzo here has just moved from National Assemblies, you are served two times.
Yeah, served 2 times in the National Assembly.
Honorable Nyonka, was he not a member of National Assembly?
Yes.
Honorable Cheptumo, was he not a member of National Assembly? Ososi?
Yes, Ososi.
Honorable Mungatana,
and the member for...
Is it Abbas? Senator Abbas? There are so many guys who have moved from, even the governor for Elgeyo Marakwet.
Yes.
All those guys
the senator for Turkana.
Yes, they are all former members of National Assembly. So I think it's high time that we made Kenya a properly bicameral parliament. Bicameral parliament should reflect the spirit that is you find in Article 93 and 94 of the Constitution, which defines parliament as a house that constitutes National Assembly and the Senate. Isn't that what is in Article 93? So this idea of when you go to Article 109(3), you say that bills not concerning counties are only considered by the National Assembly. That should not be. Because there are so many, I've read that Constitution and I've seen so many contradictions. If you go to Article 249(3) in Chapter 15 of our Constitution that deals with independent commissions, it tells you that the obligation of ensuring that all independent commissions are well financed, that they get a budget that will support the activity, that obligation is for Parliament. And the 93 has already told you that Parliament constitutes National Assembly and the Senate. But we never get an opportunity as a Senate to go through the budget and confirm whether independent commissions have been given adequate budget to support their activities. If you go to Article 249 on the National Police Service, it tells you very clearly that the police, the Inspector General of the National Police Service will be vetted and approved by Parliament. That's why each Inspector General of Police is processed through the National Assembly, passed over to the Senate, and then appointed. But all other legislations where the Constitution donated the power to National Assembly to enact laws, to bring into effect the provisions that were in the Constitution, that power was given to National Assembly. If you go to the chapter on land, Article 62 gave an obligation to National Assembly to enact a legislation on now the National Land Commission. Commissioners will be appointed. That power, Honorable Manzo gave it only to the National Assembly. I saw a debate last week on the IBZ bill on delimitation of boundaries. And somebody was trying to say, oh, how does the Senate come in? They are forgetting that if you go to the chapter on representation, chapter 7, Article 82, if you read Article 82, it says Parliament will pass a law to guide the delimitation of boundaries. That is for constituencies and for members of county assemblies. If you go to Article 110 of the Constitution, there are 3 clauses that are very clear that any legislation touching on one, elections of members of county assembly or CECs, anything touching on the powers and functions of county governments in the 6th schedule, or anything dealing with the finances of county governments under Chapter 12 of the Constitution must be dealt by the Senate. So when you move through the Constitution, you find that there are so many clauses that are overlapping, some are not very clear, and it's time for us to sit down
and have a national conversation regarding now reviewing the Constitution.
Audit that Constitution, see where it is working, see where it is not working, and we propose amendments. I used to watch debates before I became a member of Parliament, and somebody used to stand and say, the Americans have never amended their Constitution. Who tells you? It has been amended many, many times. The first amendments actually dealt with the 12 amendments, 5 years after their Constitution had been passed. The Australians have amended theirs, and you know the Australian Constitution states in black and white that any proposed amendment to their Constitution can only be done through a referendum. You must take a question to a referendum. The Australians vote for it before it becomes an amendment. And they have done it many times. So why can't we as a country also say, we need to audit our Constitution, see where it's not working, make proposed amendments, and we move forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Honorable Dan Mazo, maybe to question the issue of compensation for the fertilizers as it stands with the latest development, also challenging the decision by the parliamentary committee. You can give us the reality on the ground. Is it happening? The compensation?
The Agriculture Committee, and the first person who raised an issue was the Senator for Kakamega, Honorable Boni Alwale. He brought a request for a statement on fake fertilizer which had been found in his county, and soon it turned out there was fake fertilizer all over the place. So our committee went around the country, fact-finding, and heard different people, including the media, who had covered stories on fake fertilizer. And our report is on the final stages. The National Assembly took over the matter, decided to impeach Honorable Nduri, but forgot that the accounting officer is a permanent secretary, and in this case, in charge of crops. NCPB deals with the cereals. You know, it's a storage facility for cereals. But we also got a Fertilizer Act, and because of the issues of buying and selling, the Ministry of Trade. And then we also got KEBS, which must make sure now. What is required is that before any manufacturing takes place, KEBS must work with them, and the permanent secretary or minister in charge of that department must write to KEBS and alert. So without leaking the report, the minister in charge, the permanent secretary in charge of trade, wrote to KEBS and alerted them. And actually, when KEBS came to the house, I was very hard on them because I failed that, and I have overwhelming evidence that they are the ones who failed Kenyans, because they received this letter from the PS and did nothing till when the farmers gave an outcry. Is when they ran around and tested and found substandard fake fertilizer in many parts of the country. So although Law Society has gone to Kenya, to court, that may not reverse, the decision. You see, what many people don't understand is that the cabinet secretary may be helpless, and the permanent secretary is the accounting officer, is fully responsible. The cabinet secretary may not even be briefed. So out of the facts, maybe when our report comes out, the Law Society should look at it, because I think the Senate report is more balanced and has captured more evidence on what followed all through. All these criminal activities took place at a very lowest level, from the manufacturers to other fake manufacturers to people, at the village, where this fertilizer will be manufactured or mined, and then quickly moved to the storage facilities of NCPBB and quickly moved to the farmers, which farmers now will open a gunia with the KEBS certifications and then find the fertilizer is it. So what has that come out of that is farmers' produce may not be as usual, and the farmer has lost. That's where the Law Society should concentrate. How do you compensate a farmer who bought fake fertilizer?
And that's what I'm asking you. Is there any compensation that has begun? Since we had that pronouncement from the president also using in the diaspora, with the diasporans promising them that compensation will be fully done.
First of all,
from your own turf, Makueni, is there anyone or you're not really affected by it?
Makueni was affected.
Okay.
Big time.
Has there any compensation?
No compensation has come. But the MP from Molobo and Akuria and Dindi Nyoro must budget for it. It is not in this year's budget. Therefore, since it is not in the proposed budget,
it will not.
Kenyans will never be compensated on this. And that's why the Law Society must come in hardy, sue the government. And that's why it's important for farmers who buy these things to keep records, to keep receipts, so that one can be compensated sufficiently by the Ministry of Agriculture.
I thought as the learned friends and maybe being intimately familiar with the Constitution as it is, the Law Society of Kenya, as you tell me now, this is an exercise in futility now that they moved because the determination has been done?
No. The Law Society of Kenya can amend their petition to include all these and to include compensation of farmers. I'm sure it should be one of the prayers. So that...
No, but compensation is there, so I don't see why it should be amended, and the government has indicated they will be compensated, so it's not a matter that should be taken to court.
When you say you will compensate and then you don't budget for it, how are you compensating? You are going to get the money from where to compensate, and it is not an item of budget. Yes. It means then
you leave it.
Kenyans are being lied to.
No, we leave it to you, the legislators, to know how actually they're going to be compensated. If it's not been budgeted, then you're the people to question this on the floor of the House.
That budgeting takes place at National Assembly. It is good the Royal Society.
This is where now Senate is not really involved on matters.
No. Yeah. I told you the report for Senate is going to come out, and it will have these recommendations, which can be.
It's raising a critical issue.
Yes.
That's why there is a disconnect. Agriculture is devolved.
It is devolved.
I like the way you have captured it, the bar. You see, it is us who should be more concerned on the welfare of our farmers. It is us who should look at that budget and say, look, this matter really affects the powers and functions of county governments under the 6th schedule of our constitution. We need you to put a budget to compensate farmers. But we never get a chance to comment on the budget. That's the point I was making, that if you audit this constitution, you will see that there are many articles that don't make sense. They don't capture the spirit of devolution. So we must tighten and strengthen. When Honorable Manza is telling you the Committee of Agriculture has done a credible job, when he's telling you that farmers need to be compensated, we should have that power as a house to also say, let's look at the budget and let's make proposals to ensure that money is set aside to compensate the farmers. That's why I'm telling you that we cannot continue doing business. It cannot be business as usual. We as a house must do something to align this constitution properly to devolution. We want future devolution to be like the cantons of Switzerland, you know, that are the 26 cantons of Switzerland are semi-autonomous. They capture the spirit of Article 6.
You call it cantons?
Yeah, cantons. They're called cantons.
Like counties. Like
they are counties.
Oh, okay, they're counties.
Okay. Yeah, they call them cantons. That's their name. The way we call ours counties.
Okay.
The US call theirs states. The Australians call theirs states. It's a devolved system of government. But the 26 cantons, you know, if you go to Geneva, that's a different canton. Totally different. And the way they have integrated is beautiful. There are some cantons that speak Italian, some cantons speak German, some cantons speak French, and they all operate as one federal republic of Switzerland. So the only way that you will have a strong devolution debate is to empower the Senate of the Republic of Kenya to properly play its role under Article 6. What is your role, Manzo, in Article 6? To support county governments and the people who reside in counties. When he's proposing to compensate the farmers, he's invoking his role as defined in Article 96 of the Constitution, without us dealing with that issue of allowing the Senate to have a say on budget. We'll be doing a disservice to Kenyans, and we will not have a proper implementation of the 2010 Constitution. Yes. I want, in fact, if I was given a chance, the drafting of the 2010 Constitution should have stopped at Article 94. Mention the two houses, and then the Article 94 says the legislative authority of the Republic of Kenya is vested in Parliament. 93-94 should have ended there. These are the things of creating Article 95 and assigning powers to National Assembly, and then creating 96 and saying this is the power of the Senate. Then you go to Article 109 and say, Article 109(3) and say the legislation not concerning counties can only be considered by National Assembly. And then you go to 110 and define what bills concern counties. That's, we got it wrong. We got it wrong and we must fix it.
All right. I can see Honorable Ruku here. Right, and
you know, he has to sit back and watch us, hear what we say, and then he comes in.
Honorable Ruku is coming 5 minutes to time.
We give 1 minute to respond to all the issues we have.
We are winding up, Honorable Ruku, but I appreciate the efforts. E for effort. Eh? That is what you've redeemed yourself. You know, you're supposed to be. Yeah, we thought actually it's taken a lot of Mowoka. This is the fact that the last time I saw him on TV, he was actually in the midst of a Mowoka farm.
But there's only one prayer for him. I hope when we are voting for the budget, you will not arrive late when the debate has been concluded. Because there are issues we want you as a member of parliament, as our member of parliament, to go and deal with. So I hope when the issue of budget comes to the floor, you will keep time and interrogate it.
Is not overtaxed.
Interrogate it. And ensure that you cast your vote.
Okay. Let me give him chance because now I have a few minutes remaining and it will be just unfair. But you've done yourself injustice, yes, right? But and I told you I should wake you up today. All right? I know you've been in Kiriribi, he's been busy in Mowoka farm. And you always say that when you come here, you take a bit of Mogoka.
Yes.
Right. So I thought you'd taken a bit of Mogoka, and now you've redeemed yourself, because I was getting aggrieved that we spoke very well. You should be on the show. Tell me.
I arrived late last night from the constituency. So many things are happening there as far as Mogoka is concerned. We cannot allow anybody in authority, whether presidency or minister or even governors, to joke with the livelihood of those people in Better North, in Better South, in Manyata, in Nyanjas, in part of Kirinyaga, part of Makueni County. We have a lot of Mogoka also.
Is Mogoka in Makueni?
It's grown.
Yeah, there's Mogoka in Makueni.
Yes.
And even some counties like Nakuru, they are also growing Mogoka. But originally Mogoka come from Mbere. So we are strong, and we are going to push to ensure our crop remains a crop. It's not a drug. It's a stimulant, just like coffee and tea. And let the governors from the coast region find the solution of the hand drugs and heroin, cocaine, brown sugar, which the young people are taking there. But I think there's more than meat and eye as far as this push is concerned. The United States of America is going to build a military base in Manda Island. And all the drug barons who have been very busy distributing drugs across using the coastal Rhine as one of the main hub. It has come to the realization that the trip to the United States of America by the president, one of the key agreements was to build military air base in Manda Island, which will kill the trafficking of drugs completely. So I think these drug barons are trying to fight in many ways. And remember, it stretches all the way from the northeastern stretch to the coastal stretch. So there is more than meat and eye. And also the issue of secession. When sometimes back, leaders from the coastal region used to say, Pwani sio Kenya. I think it's also a way of testing whether they can come up with their own laws, because such an executive order is unconstitutional, is illegal, and should not be respected by anybody. And if you see coast governors trying to come up with an executive order saying that this crop has been banned, then tomorrow they may come up with another executive order saying that we want our own land registry. Then tomorrow, then after that, we want our own revenue authority to collect our own taxes. Then after that, we want our own police force. And they have all manner of justification which they can come up with, saying that we have a lot of stealing happening, we have a lot of thugs, Kenya police is not doing its job properly. So I think they must be stopped. They have to respect the national laws. We have a law, Crop Act, Miraa Regulation 2023, which make Mogoka as a shaded crop. That must be respected. It's a national law. It's a law passed by the National Assembly and ratified and gone through all the stages, even the public participation. The other thing which is key is that no governor has the powers to wake up and say tomorrow we are starting to levy 6,000 per carton. All levies, all taxes must go through public participation. The centrality of our constitution is public participation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And I'm sure these two eminent lawyers can be able to agree with me. The centrality of our constitution is public participation. There is no public participation as far as the 6,000 per carton of Mogoka levy is concerned. There was no public participation. So the governor of Mombasa is completely out of order. I'm surprised. He speaks very nice English, but I wonder whether he's a guy who has gone to school properly. If he has gone to school properly, he should learn to respect the laws of the nation.
Thank you. All right, and that's all the time I'll give you today, because now we have just to but thank you for showing up and redeeming yourself. I wanted just to get a closing Remarks. I know Dan Maz is supposed to be catching a flight to Mombasa. You can give us your closing remarks so that you can also make your way there.
I think a clear demonstration of how frustrated Kenyans were was a young man fighting with a policeman. I don't encourage young people, to break the law. But I think now that the young man beat up the policeman and the policemen have beaten up the young man, that's a matter which can be sorted out of court between the parties. And then we dissuade, Kenyans, despite a lot of frustrations by the UDA government, that they should not resort into such actions.
Thank you.
And one wrong doesn't, make another wrong better.
Fantastic. All right. Honorable Kongo Mogeni, your closing remarks briefly.
Just to say congratulations to Madam Claudia, the new president of Mexico. And to encourage our women to also come out and seek these elective posts. This actually should bring to an end this debate of saying the only way women can rise to power is through affirmative action.
Thank you.
They can come out and vote. And if you give me a second, just to say pole to a dear brother of mine, Patrick Lumumba, who lost his wife. My condolences to him.
PLO?
Not our own PLO. We have our own PLO in our family. In our family. That okay. Patrick Lumumba is actually my brother. So I'm also mourning. If you don't see me in this show, I'll be mourning a bit. I'm bereaved, so I'm saying pole to him, to my